Right, now I'm going to look at compressing a kick drum. So I'm going to solo it again for a minute. Right, now I'm going to go to the compressor. If you want a simple one, use a silver compressor, but don't like that and it's got no output level. So I'm going to show you the normal compressor. Now, compressor defaults to RMS compression, which is a more general compression than peak compression. You could use that, but what I'm going to do is switch it to, first thing to do is switch it to peak mode. Compression, pretty complicated, and I won't go through and explain all the things that it means now, but I'm just going to show you a few things that I would do. I would probably start a ratio. I wouldn't want to push a kick more than about ratio of 3, and that's pretty extreme. Maybe 2 is a bit better. I'll flick around with it for a minute. So I'm going to sort of do it in reverse order and show you why. Now, attack, I wouldn't have any less than 26 is always what I have in mind, but I would say no attack less than 20. 30 is maybe quite good. The reason why I would say that, some people would disagree, is because if you go too early on the attack, you cut off the transient of the drum. And what I mean is, you cut off the real impact of the start of the drum. Any kind of drum sound goes from quiet to loud in a very short space of time, probably in about 30 milliseconds. If you put your attack level down below, put it to 0, you kind of, if you can see this, that shows it in a ridiculous way. Like if I put my attack at 0 and have a really ridiculous compression, then it pulls all the impact off the drum. If you see now, if I move it up to about 26, you still get the front of the drum. You still get the front of the transient. And once, for me, it's around about 25 where you actually get a decent sound. 20 is maybe even too much. That illustrates what it does anyway. So I would say attack. I usually have my attack for kicks at about 26. That was just because I did it for a while, and then 26 seemed to be the right one. So I'd have that about there. I'm going to reduce the threshold a bit because it's a bit too much. I'd say 2.9. Now, threshold, this is how I would set the threshold. This thing here, gain reduction, again, that is all that compression is. You just turn the drum down by 6 dB or whatever at the moment, 6 to 8. Now, one of the rules of thumb that I use is I want my gain reduction not to go any more than about 6, and that's going to be set by the threshold. So if I go really high threshold, it doesn't do anything. Really low, it does a ridiculous amount of compression. I like to go for about, seems about right to me. So I'm not even looking at what the threshold is. It doesn't make any difference because it depends on how high you recorded the drum at. Now even this is quite extreme. Some people would go less. They'd go about 3 dB of gain reduction. A little less control, but a little more musical. So that's alright for me at the moment. 14.5 seems about right. Now, one thing about it is, again, louder always seems better to the ear, so you should keep AB in it to make sure it's not louder. And what I mean is, flick it off. And mess with this. Mess with your gain setting to change the audible level. And what it should do is, when you bypass, it should match. Obviously, that needs more. So they should just sound the same level as each other. I'm just going to reduce this a bit actually, it's a bit too extreme for me at the moment. Anyway, yeah, that'll do for me at the moment. So, yeah. Sometimes, obviously, one of the main rules is sometimes your ear gets too stuck in its ways when you listen to it all at once. So, come back and do these processes later when you've done it. Final thing, release I never mentioned. My rule of thumb is look at it and check that it's going back to 0 at about the time that the snare comes in. And that, so you can flick it around, like, chat. Not enough. Oh. So let me zoom in again. A bit more. That's about right. So it's going back to 0 as the snare comes in, and the same vice versa when you compress the snare. It should come back to 0 when the kick goes in. Now knee, I'm not really going to talk about knee. That seems alright to me, the setting. Again, maybe if you want, flick it round to see which you like the sound better of. In this case, the knee is it's a more extreme compression when you're down at 0. It seems. Compared to when you're up there. 0.7 seems about right to me. I'm not going to explain knee at the moment, but leave it at 0.7 I would if I was you. Right, cool. Once again, let's hear it in the mix. So we might adjust this later again. Again, another thing, I'm not A-B'd it for a while with the original. See how it's starting to change quite a lot. Starting to get a bit more impact here, a bit more control. Okay, right, so that's that part.